This is Ron Turner of Frontrunner 2020. Welcome to this episode of our ongoing series. Before we start the program, let me say a few words about our purpose. We launched the Frontrunner 2020 series to support and encourage those on the journey towards elected office. We aim to present relevant programming for those aspiring to run and those who are already making the commitment to run for office. We want you to lay the groundwork and be prepared. In addition, some of our presentations are focused on strategies and tactics for use during your campaign. Our guests are the best in their field, and this ranges from marketing to campaign techniques to technology. We emphasize recognizing the marketing element and building your brand as a core strategic component. There are many things you can do before you announce your candidacy that will enhance your potential and eliminate obstacles that may get in your way. We recognize this path as a matter of personal growth and a calling. Please tell us what you need to be more successful, and we'll plan future programs around your feedback. Dana Marie Kennedy has been a leading advocate for working families, retirees, and women for over 20 years, proudly and professionally acting as their voice at the local, state, and national level. Dana is currently the principal and owner of Danamite Media and Political Consulting, LLC. Danamite specializes in social media and consulting, focusing on nonprofit capacity building, grassroots issues campaigns, political candidates, and independent expenditures and social media marketing and press. Clients include Hillary Clinton for President, Susan G. Komen Community Challenge, UltraFit, Evo Sports, Fieldworks, and Emerge America, and the Alliance for Retired Americans. In 2009, Dana put her skills to the test and ran for Phoenix City Council. She forced a well-known incumbent into a runoff, and with just a 5-month campaign managed to get 44% of the vote, even though she was outspent 3-1, in addition to being targeted by 2 independent expenditures. And this, believe me, this is an amazing achievement for a first-time unknown candidate. Dana has held a number of volunteer positions and is the co-founder of Emerge Arizona and a co-founder for Emerge America. Her capability, competence, and track record of success are respected across the country after her much-lauded work for the Alliance for Retired Americans, the National Council of Senior Citizens, the Massachusetts Senior Action Council, the Democratic National Committee, and the United States Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and for many, many others. Dana has experience with such groups in crafting and implementing successful policy and community outreach programs. Dana holds a bachelor's degree in social work and a certificate in gerontology, both from Cal State in Long Beach, and a master's degree in social work and certificates in human service management and gerontology, both from Boston University. She worked her way through college as a caregiver, developing great interest in boundless compassion for long-term care delivery systems and families coping with the aging process of loved ones. Dana lives in and loves Phoenix, where she enjoys running South Mountain. She's proud to have completed several marathons and several half marathons, and just recently finished her first triathlon. Finally, Dana is also a proud graduate of the Women's Campaign School of Yale, class of 2007. So, with that impressive bio, let me transition into our actual program. I am so delighted to have Dana joining us, and here's why. Everybody needs role models, and I pursued Dana and asked her to be on this program to serve as a role model for people who are considering running for office and who are on that path, and find out, in addition to hearing her own story, is to get her advice and tips along the way of what she has learned. So we're going to have a conversation. This is not a PowerPoint presentation, but we'll just talk with Dana about what she has done and what advice she has for you in your own activities. So, Dana, are you ready to get started?
I am. Thank you so much, Ron, for a great introduction and all your leadership in developing Frontrunner 2020. It's a great program. I wish I had it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me take a minute. I've been talking so much and just make sure that all the audio and all that stuff is working, that we're not just talking to ourselves, and it looks like everything is good. So, all right. Here's what I want to do, and kind of just give everybody a heads up, is that we're going to talk about Dana's time in Arizona. When she first got to Arizona, we're primarily focusing on her 2009 campaign, and because that's the part that's most relevant. And then in our conversations about that, we will be talking about different details of running a campaign, how you prepare for it, what you get out of it, and things like that. So, Dana, maybe the place to begin is what triggered your move to Arizona.
Well, I think that, running for office is, it's a journey, and I wasn't one of those people who woke up and decided that I'm going to run for office one day and I'm going to be president. My family wasn't really politically active. We didn't talk politics, very minimal, but I was really interested in, serving the community. I always wanted to help. So I got involved with the National Association of Social Workers, which took me to the state capitol in California when I was early in my social work career, and watched, the legislatures, kind of watch legislation being developed. And that was like my first hint that I probably could do that. I was watching them debate, and people were coming up and, testifying, and they weren't even listening to the testimony. And I was absolutely floored because the testimony was so moving, and I couldn't believe that they weren't listening to the testimony. And I thought that's what you were supposed to do when you're elected to office, is, listen to different perspectives.
And this was at the state capitol in Sacramento.
Yeah, in California. So it was during, while I was working to get my bachelor's degree. And then I, became a social worker, and during the Orange County bankruptcy, the county went bankrupt, and I had to decide if somebody was safe to stay in their own home. And I also had really good supervisors who encouraged me to go back to school, and as a bachelor of social work, you're really never going to go much further. You're always going to have somebody supervise you. So I decided I wanted to focus on macro social work because I was watching how one person can bankrupt an entire county and how that was impacting me as a social worker, determining if somebody could stay in their own home or not. And I thought that's just kind of flawed. So it was like those early memories of, starting to think about, gee, I could possibly do that. So when I went to graduate school, I went to Boston University, and when I was completed, I really wanted to go to Washington, D.C. So when I went to Washington, D.C., focused a lot on Congress and, national politics, and I started to get really involved in politics. But even my first job at the National Council of Senior Citizens, I remember asking, what's the difference between the House and the Senate? And so I was really naive to politics, but yet I was very interested in learning. Of course, I could tell you the difference now, and got really involved in politics and watched how legislation got passed, and I was really working on prescription drugs. And I ended up applying for a position. Well, a friend had said, I think you should apply for this position at the Democratic National Committee. And here I was at the DNC, and I got the position. And all I wanted to do was talk about Social Security and Medicare. Well, the 2000 elections were about Social Security and Medicare. So I was able to help shape that message somewhat. which is difficult in a campaign to be, a national campaign to really shape the message. But I was able to really work with all the different state parties to make sure that they were also focusing on these issues and engaging seniors as being the, deliverer of the message. So I really wanted to get back home. I knew I wanted to run for office, kind of got the bug in D.C. Didn't really know what office I wanted to run for. I always thought, well, if you're going to run for office, for Congress, you got to start somewhere. So the first place to start is getting back home. So once I got home to San Francisco, my job had me traveling all over the western states. And one of the states that I got really involved in and spent a lot of time with was Arizona. So they had me, stay in Arizona for months on end. And I started developing all different kinds of connections and watched their state legislature. And my friend would talk about the state legislature and the crazy things that they were saying and doing in the legislation they were working on getting passed. And I had already started, being involved with Emerge in San Francisco and realized we need Emerge here in Arizona.
Now let's take a minute, and for those who do not know, tell us about Emerge.
Oh, right, of course. Emerge is what started in the Bay Area, and it's a comprehensive 6 to 7 month training program for Democratic women who want to run for office. And we take 25 women, and they have to apply to the program. We interview them. We accept up to 25, and they start, the program. In Arizona, we started in January. We finish in June. That's not necessarily the case in all the states. And we teach everything that the women need to know about running for office. And then they also, as we continue to train more women, they also have this built-in network, like an alumni association. So the women support each other for the most part when they actually decide to run for office. And it's kind of like a built-in social support system right away. And the 25 women who go through the program together bond, but then we also have alumni events for them to continue to meet other women who have gone through the program as well. Mm-hmm. So we had a successful model in the Bay Area, and I, talked to what I always refer to as Mama Emerge and asked, hey, do you think we could, replicate it? I was on the ground floor, when we started this and have continued to support it, so I think I know what we need to do, and I think that I can come up with, $5,000 to start it. And there was one person who definitely wanted it, one person was hesitant, but at the end of the day they said, let's go ahead and, test pilot replicating in Arizona. And it was successful right away. We had a group of women that applied to the program. They got accepted into the program, and a couple of them actually started running for office while they were going through the program. We would rather people, go through the program before they run, but you can't always determine, all of life circumstances. So we'll still accept them even if they are running for office. Mm-hmm. And so we replicated Emerge in Arizona, and I started to get really involved in politics here as well since I was spending so much time here. So it was really easy for me to get involved with the Democratic Party. And so after being here, on and off for almost 2 years, I decided to go ahead and make Arizona my home. It was affordable, it was easy to make connections, and it was still close enough to California, but I also realized that there was a lot of potential for somebody who really wanted to work hard and rise up the ranks. And it wasn't, it wouldn't be as hard to elbow my way through, politics, because I was never involved in politics in California, even though that's where I was from. I was just simply, a social worker, but I never went to a party meeting or anything like that. So Arizona, I, got involved right away and decided, I started researching the different offices that I would want to run for. So I started to get, I got involved with my homeowners association, and I ran for, a board of directors position. And I figured that would be a great start because I am actually single with no children, so many people would, possibly run for school board. I really didn't have an interest in running for school board. I figured a homeowners association was a better fit for what I wanted to do.
Now let's talk about homeowners association because I think that's really important. In one of our previous programs, we had David Smith, a former Plano City Council member, talking about the types of things you do before you run for a larger elected office. And homeowners associations is one of the things he mentioned. And I know it's different parts of the country that means something different. There are some homeowners associations that include a lot more services. Now, I remember when I lived in California, there were a lot of public services, swimming pools, and a lot of things that were part of the homeowners association that maybe in Texas people expect their city government to provide. So let's make that clear. What were the kind of things that you did as part of the homeowners association?
Well, where I lived, it's 800 units, and 4 of those units, so 800 homes and condos, and 400 of those are condos, and we oversee. It's not a gated community. It's like half gated. We actually gated half of the community just for traffic control, but we are responsible for our roads, our trash pickup, the swimming pools, the lighting of the community, and for the condos where we oversee all the roof repair and balcony repair. Mm-hmm. And we oversee $1 million budget. And you also have to learn how to work with people.
Well, and that's what you're going where I was going to guide you anyway, which is the skills that you develop in that role that serves you later. So can you talk about that a little?
Certainly. So we would have like open forum for the first part of our homeowners association meeting. The president would listen to people and then not respond at all. And it was just a very awkward, cold meeting. And so I would then interrupt and say, could I ask some questions? Can I respond? And that way that I could, respond to what I felt was the community. They were coming and testifying or sharing an issue, and we would just tell them that we'd get back to them later. Well, I felt that they needed to be validated for whatever their concern was. So it did allow me an opportunity to interact and change the feeling of the board meetings because people didn't like to go to them. And I could understand why they didn't feel that we were really listening to them at all. So you can change the dynamics that way. You understand how Robert's Rules of Order works. You understand how you have to get bids and vote on certain contracts. And, we had to look at warranties. I mean, we really dove into a lot of issues. And for me, it kind of matched with what I wanted to do for running for city council. So it kind of matched my skill set. And it also allowed me to, when there were openings, to recruit a few people who I thought that I would get along well with to run for those open seats. And I would actually put together and run their campaigns. We would do mail, we would do knock on doors, and so I helped change the dynamic of the HOA meetings as well because it was like this, but good old boy club. And it was, the retirees that really were active, but I was able to recruit some newer people, some younger people, and with some fresh ideas to the board.
That's really cool. Now, let me, forgive me for interrupting, but let me kind of take you in a related direction, which is about confidence, because that's an important element. And, a few minutes ago you were talking about how you decided that you could run for office, and one important element of that is the confidence that you can do that. And, our mutual friend Lillian Salerno was on the program number 4 and talked about some of the things that prevent women from running for office, and one of those was that confidence. A lot of times it's an issue. So tell us the story of, and talk about confidence in any way you like, but in particular, I know you've told me about an event where you were advocating for seniors and that none of the elected officials even showed up, and then some of your experience in lobbying in state capitals and so on, and meeting with the elected officials and getting more personal with them, and how that led to your own confidence that you could run for elected office.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't feel like I was born naturally with confidence, especially to be in the public eye. I'm so much more comfortable behind the scenes, and I think a lot of people would say that they are comfortable behind the scenes. But I'm passionate about the issues that I care deeply about, and I'm passionate about them because of my direct relationship working, with seniors and seeing something that's wrong. So I have no problem like speaking up at that point in time. So, first it was holding town hall meetings where we would, have all the seniors would be there and invite the elected officials, and we put together a wonderful event on transportation to kind of really dive into the transportation issues. And we thought that if elected officials realized that people were getting dropped off, who were disabled in a wheelchair, getting dropped off at a doctor's appointment, and it was taking them 2 to 3 hours to get picked up, that they would help change and advocate for that. And unfortunately, the elected officials didn't show up to this event, and it made me realize, well, I would show up to every single event. And the same with when I was on my homeowners association. I used to go to those meetings and not confident, about asking questions about how we go about getting a bid, or I didn't really understand Robert's Rules of Order, and when I could speak and how you bring up an amendment, and that experience with the homeowners association gave me the confidence, because I realized that part of being an elected official, and a good one, is listening and learning. We don't need to know it all, but if we start to participate in the process by attending meetings, I didn't just run for the HOA right away. I actually started going to my homeowners association meetings, so I could kind of watch the dynamics. And
so the idea is that you were getting experience incrementally that kind of built your confidence, if I could kind of summarize.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting on different boards, even being part of the Emerge board was a huge confidence builder, because I was working with other women who felt the same way that I did and spoke the same way that I did. And it, before you know it, I was asked to be a presenter, to do some public speaking, and it really, forced me to be in the spotlight, even though that's not where I always wanted to go. But it helped me realize that I could do it. I might not be comfortable at first, but I'll get used to it. And the more I got used to it, the better I did.
Okay, cool. Now, here's another point, too, that we talked about last week. I know in my business career, it was kind of a turning point for me when I rose up, in the corporate level to where I was a vice president, where I was like around with, the entrepreneur who had founded the company and all of these guys. And I sort of realized it's like, wow, they're mortal, And I had these guys on such a pedestal before, like they were something special. And that was really important to me, and it gave me the confidence to start my own company later. Is just like seeing these guys and having lunch with them and everything. It's like, you know what, not to take anything away from them or their accomplishment or their courage to take risks and so on, but it was, they're not extraordinary, and so I can do what they're doing. And I know you've had experiences like that, right?
Yeah, and I will say that many of the Emerge women, they often are very hesitant to say that they want to run for office. They're tiptoeing around it. They're not quite sure if it's okay, if it's acceptable to say, hey, I want to run for office, and I'm good enough and I'm qualified to run for office. And what we do is we make it so you don't have to decide exactly what office you want to run for. We're going to help you, guide you through the process. And we usually have to work on recruiting one woman. We usually have to ask her 6 to 8 times before she'll actually apply. So once we get the women in the program, we teach them everything that they need to know. One of the things we do is we actually take them down to the state capitol, and they get to watch, the state legislatures in action. And for some of the elected officials in Arizona, their behavior on the floor is absolutely appalling. And what it does is after they see how they interact, how sometimes they're completely unprofessional, maybe not even well put together and groomed, they realize, I too could do that, and I'm definitely qualified. So once we expose the women to, working on people's campaigns, bringing in elected officials so they could meet them, they then realize, I have all the skill sets that are needed to run for office. And then what we do with the Emerge program is we break it down so into tangible steps of this is what you need to do in order to run for office. Because I will say that every single one of the Emerge graduates is absolutely qualified to run for office and to represent people. And half of the state legislature, I shouldn't say half, but there are many in our Arizona state legislature. One person right now who was actually beat a woman on the freeway, his girlfriend, and 5 people saw it, and he's still in office. And there's an ethics investigation right now. And those are the examples that we like to use with women, is you are so much more qualified than that person, and you would be so much better representing people than that person. And I think we can all, think of somebody who somehow got elected to office and is representing us, and we know in our heart and soul that we could do such a better job if we could actually get elected. And that's what we want to do, is help them, when they do become a candidate, that they run a good campaign, that they've done a lot of the steps to actually run for office. That way they're ready for, whenever the opportunity presents itself, because we don't know when it's going to present ourselves. We can have the best plan of when we're going to run, but we don't always know exactly what might play out if somebody, gets kicked out of office, if somebody decides to run for something else. An opportunity could present itself earlier than we thought that it could.
Right. So, I'm sort of thinking of this like pieces of a puzzle. So, you were confident that you could run for office, and, you had different issues that you cared about, in particular, advocating for seniors. And I think everybody that's listening to this program has things that they care deeply about, or else they would not be here. So to me, that's really important in life, is to connect your activities to what is really important to you and what's in your heart. And so let's talk about that. So then what level of government is the one where you can have the most leverage and the most impact on the issues that matter to you, and how you think about that question?
Right. I think, and I think that's a little bit of a two-part question too, because maybe you aspire to run for Congress. However, there's only 435 members of Congress, so you might want to run for something before you get, before you make it your way up to Congress.
Fair enough.
And so for me, I really wanted to, city council to me is very exciting. I used to think I wanted to run for Congress, but then I started to realize, well, there's 435 members of Congress. My ability to make impact is probably minimal. You can definitely do some good work and do some great advocacy, but you may not have the impact that you want to have. And then I started doing research, and I realized city council was really in line with what I like to do, because, they oversee the senior centers, the after-school programs. I was a product of an after-school program, so I felt that it was, we were going through some really devastating budget cuts and having to make difficult decisions, and there was not one person on that city council that had the background that I had to advocate for programs that I felt that were so important as they were going down the road of making cuts and closing senior centers and closing swimming pools. And I felt that it would be, great to have a really strong voice on the city council. So I started, attending city council meetings and realizing, wow, there's 8 city council members and a mayor. Your ability to, to actually sway is fairly large. And then I also looked at the County Board of Supervisors. That's also a great place to start, and they oversee a very large budget. In Arizona, they actually would rein in our Sheriff Joe Arpaio, if you're familiar with him. But they basically, approved the funding for his office. So that would be kind of an exciting position too. Then our state legislature, for me, it wasn't so exciting. But a lot of people like to go for, state legislature. But for me, it just wasn't as good of a fit. And, so there's all kinds of different positions that you could go through. But I really think that it's wise to actually go to the different meetings and watch the interaction and watch the issues. I know going to the state legislature and going to committee hearings on certain topics, I am just bored. Like, that's definitely not an area that I would be really, some of the committees I wouldn't be interested in, but maybe human services I would be interested in. So it's also looking at what kind of committees you would possibly, want to be on if you were elected to that office.
Right.
It's key as well.
Right. Those are good points. Now, let's talk about your campaign a little bit. So that this was unexpected. 2009, the incumbent, on very short notice, decided not to run for re-election, and you were called. So how did that come about? And tell us about your campaign.
Well, when I decided to move to Arizona, that was 2005. So I started to come to Arizona in 2003. So 2005, I moved to Arizona. I got into my HOA 2006. I, was involved with the merge. I was starting to, get on boards of nonprofits. And then I started to research what different positions. So I decided 2013 I was going to run for Phoenix City Council. And that was the year that my city council person was term limited. So it would give me 2009 to volunteer on his campaign and start to meet, all the different volunteers, start to understand the issues, have a, really key role. So that was my plan. Well, his name is Greg Stanton, and he decided that he was going to leave his office even before he completed it. And so what happened was a appointment. So I decided to go for the appointment. I made, appointments with all the city council members, the mayor, and I saw how politics really plays out. It was a good old boy network, and they were never even going to put my name forward for a vote, even if I can convince them why I would be great for this position. So Sal ended up getting the appointment, which means he is now an incumbent, and he had been in city council before, and he didn't even get along with the mayor when he was in office in the early 2000s. So why they thought he would change his colors is beyond me. But anyway, so I was now running against a well-known incumbent, well-funded, and had basically, the good old network all built in. And I, really hemmed and hawed. Do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? I'm not financially where I want to be, because you also have to keep in mind your finances. And it's going to take a huge toll on your finances. So I really wanted to have, car paid off and, nice savings account and be ready, ready to rock and roll when 2013 came along. And then I, wasn't going to run, was going to run. Every single day was different. And I've been asked many times, are you going to ever run for office? And my response was, well, if there's not somebody that I can vote for, then I'm going to step up to the plate. Well, the more Sal was in office, the more I realized I have nobody to vote for. And that just, every single morning I would wake up and see that ballot and see Sal DeCiccio and Dana, you tell women every single day to run for office, and here you are letting fear hold you back. You need to do this. And even if you don't win this time, you're still set up from when you were originally going to run anyway in 2013. So the last day to file was June 3rd, 2009, and I filed on June 2nd, which happened to be my great-grandfather's birthday. So it was a symbolic day for me as well. And 10 days before everything was due, I went and knocked on doors, got 1,000 signatures without really telling anybody, and I wanted to kind of call it the shock and awe campaign. So when I filed my signatures, nobody was really expecting it, and then all of a sudden it would create a buzz. And create a buzz it did. My kickoff fundraiser was so well attended, I couldn't believe it. But I had been developing my list for years So my email list was ready to go as soon as I decided to cross that line. So that 10 days that I finally decided I was going to do it, I got everything ready. I had a photographer come and take pictures. I had somebody working on a website. You have to be careful with Facebook. Once you set up that page, it's live and everybody can see it once you make it live. And so a little cat got out of the bag before, a couple days ahead of time, thanks to Facebook and not completely understanding Facebook yet, and an eager volunteer. And I put together my kitchen cabinet, and once June 3rd hit, I was knocking on doors almost every single day in the heat. I put together a great team of volunteers. I ended up having 200 volunteers. And keep in mind, my campaign to force Sal into the runoff was June, July, and ballots dropped in August. So I had like
That's amazing. That is
before
amazing.
ballots even dropped. And I stopped him from he ended up getting 47% of the vote, and there were 2 other people in the campaign as well. And I got 29% of the vote and forced a runoff. I stopped him from getting 50 plus 1. And so on September 2nd, I was completely broke and had no money in my campaign coffers, which you shouldn't have, but I put everything into getting into the runoff. And once I got into the runoff, a lot of people were like, wait a minute, we need to take a second look. Who is this Dana Marie Kennedy? And because I wasn't well known yet. And I, definitely hadn't gone to all the planning and zoning committees and all the different events that people normally go to as they're planning on running for office. But we definitely knocked on more doors than he did. We had a great field campaign and volunteers making phone calls. I did $10,000 myself with volunteers. I think we probably hit
10,000. Now I have to interrupt you just to draw attention to that, right? Because you're reinforcing a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about. For example, the thing you mentioned about being in stealth mode and coming up with 1,000 signatures and everything, just like, here I am. That was something that Roadblock mentioned last week. And the idea of walking, we had one program about walking and how important that is. You personally, not your campaign, but you personally knocked on 10,000 doors.
Yep, I did personally.
Right? And then you had volunteers mobilized that were doing all this. And that's something else, leveraging with the volunteers. I know that your opponent did not do that. He had the big bucks, but he didn't have the kind of grassroots support that you had. Of what did you say, 300 volunteers?
200, yeah.
200, yeah. Hey, okay, so let me remind people that they can ask questions here. We'll keep talking about the campaign for a minute, but let me just tell everybody that, as I explained in the beginning, that I'm reviewing and organizing the questions that are coming in, but you can continue to submit. So anybody who hasn't yet, go ahead and type your questions in there so that I can see them. Just type into the questions box and click send. And
can I
go ahead.
mention one other thing about my campaign?
Sure.
Is you'll notice the picture of me in the green suit. It's not a normal suit that you would usually see somebody in. But with the last name Kennedy, I wanted to take full advantage of the name Kennedy. And so my campaign was all green. So I wore green to almost everything. And my mailers all had like the green in them. My campaign signs had green. Everything had green, and that was part of marketing and branding. And people would always talk about, you're always wearing green. And that was not on accident. That was on purpose. I went on eBay and actually bought a lot of my green outfits. And then I had green sundresses because I knocked on doors with green sundresses. And I just think that it's also important to think of how would you brand yourself when you decide to run for office.
Very good, yeah. And if there's that opportunity to do that beforehand, as you're becoming known in the community, that would make sense too, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so, we'll bring some more questions in here and bring other people into the conversation, and let me just kind of continue here because I want to talk about the campaign as a few more questions come in. So we're going back to the idea of the volunteers, and I think that your campaign is a textbook example. And of course, why wouldn't it be after all the work you've done for Emerge, that you know how to run a campaign? So the mobilization of the volunteers, talk about the importance of volunteers to your campaign.
The volunteers are just a lifeblood of any campaign, and we also use social media. So like the night that I got into the runoff, I said, hey, I want all of my Emerge women to come up here with me, and we took a picture, and it was just like, and everybody wore green. I didn't even ask them to wear green, but they wore green to the election night party. And so we took a picture, and so many people, without even asking, it was so organic, which was fabulous. They used that picture as their profile picture. And
wow.
Yeah, it was just amazing and just so heartfelt. And I didn't ask my volunteers to do anything that I wasn't doing. And that was really a struggle for me, because we would have, you can make more contact on phones. And if my volunteers were doing phone calls, I wanted to be there doing phone calls, even though I would have probably wanted to be knocking on doors. But I wouldn't be doing voter contact phone calls. I would be doing fundraising phone calls, because it gave me more energy. I didn't like doing call time by myself or anything, but I would have a volunteer staff me to do phone calls, or I would do fundraising calls while they were doing voter contact calls.
Dana, that is very smart. I have not heard that tip before, so let me highlight that as a tip, because you kind of put two things together there that impressed me. And, phone calling is my business, and so one of the things that is so hard is doing that call time for a candidate. For me personally, making sales calls, for everybody, that's human nature. It's so hard to do that call time. And so there's all different ways that campaign managers and fundraising consultants have to provide that discipline. And then the other side of it is leadership and motivation and management of the volunteers in the phone bank. And the idea of you putting them both together and solving two different problems by one configuration, if that's the right word, that you're doing your call time while they're running a phone bank. That's brilliant, Dana.
Yeah, because we would have like basically, a call center room where everybody's making phone calls, and I would be in there, and it would help with fundraising calls as well, because I would be able to say, can you hear this? Because keep in mind, when you're never run for office before, you're automatically at a disadvantage with are you able to do this? You're running against somebody that has $300,000 in the bank. Why is this a good investment of my money? Mm-hmm. And I would be able to say, he may have $300,000, but listen to this room of volunteers, all making phone calls right now, and the response is phenomenal.
Very good. Very good.
So that would help bring in, make people write checks, or call somebody who wrote a check before to give another check, because we could, and they could give again if they hadn't maxed out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so looking at the time now, I want to ask you, Dana, to help me do my job, because I've got all these notes in front of me and everything, and as we've been talking and preparing for this, are there some points that we wanted to make that I have forgotten? And I'm saying, giving you the opportunity to make some closing comments, bring up the stuff that maybe I have missed or overlooked, and then we'll try to get a few questions in before the end of the hour.
The one thing that I would like to share with everybody is running for office, it can be scary and it can be overwhelming, but it is such a phenomenal experience. And I wouldn't take it back for anything that I've ever done. And it gave me the confidence to continue to start my own business. I always wanted to have my own business, but I was so afraid. Well, running for office gave me the confidence to say, you need to believe in yourself if you want others to believe in you to represent them. And it's a great experience. And just know that, find the perfect match for what you want to run for, and always know why do you want to run for office, because you should be able to answer that question right away and never pause or hesitate for why you want to run. And you get your rap down, because it is a great experience.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to get a few questions here, and Harold, if you are ready, I am going to unmute you. Dana, this is my cousin from Kentucky. He was our presenter last week. Roadblock McIlvain, he's a rural political consultant, and he has a question for you. And so let me unmute him and make sure that our technology works between Kentucky and Texas and Arizona. Roadblock, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Go right ahead, sir.
Okay. Dana, first I want to congratulate you on your success, and not only your political success, but sounds like your life success. Early part of the show, I heard you to mention something about the Emerge America women for training. How do y'all pick the amount of number, and if you have a number set and you get too many, how do you classify those numbers so that you will know which ones can come to the class and which ones cannot?
Well, we're in 9 states right now, and Kentucky is actually one of them. And the women have to apply to the program, which that right there actually narrows down the field significantly, because it's a fairly comprehensive application. And what we found is making the women go through an application really helps us determine who's serious. And then I can't speak for every single state, but I think for the most part, we interview almost anybody who applies. I think California may weed it down to maybe interviewing 50 people, but for the most part, we haven't had so many applicants that we couldn't interview everybody. And we weed it down according to how serious they are about running for office, because if they know that they want to run, most likely they're going to get into the program. And that's always been a challenge by deciding who is really going to be what everybody will call a viable candidate. And our philosophy so far has been that's not necessarily up to us to determine who's viable. It's up to us to help women gain the skills that they need in order to run for office and win.
As I already knew, Dana, it is a good program, and I'm glad y'all have it. I'm glad you're able to help the women around that's going to be in the political ring. If you ever need anything in Kentucky, well, just keep us in mind. Appreciate it. And Ron, as always, thank you for your help on your program.
Well, thanks for checking in, Roadblock. Let me mute that sound on that channel. And our next question comes from Johnny. She wants to talk to you about the volunteers and so on. So let me open up that channel for Johnny, and she can go ahead. Johnny, go ahead and ask your question.
Earth to Ron. Hi. Dana, thank you so much for being with us tonight. This has been most enlightening. And I have a couple of comments, and I have a very strong question. First of all, I wanted to tell you that I ran for city council back in the early 80s in Irving, where I live. And your comment regarding knowing why you want to run, I got so upset at one of the meetings because of the way they were handling an issue, I went out the next day and started getting my signatures. I was so upset about it and filed. So I understand. Yeah, see, I understand that. That's totally awesome, because that's exactly what propelled me into. I didn't win, but I made a lot of noise, which was my objective anyway.
And you gave people somebody to vote for.
Well, I did, and you know what? I didn't have a lot of money to spend. I only had one contributor, but I spent my own money on my signs and things. But I went door to door, and the votes I got, the precincts I got, were the precincts I walked. It was an amazing eye-opener for me, and I've never been inactive in politics since. Which brings me to the volunteer thing, because I have always been, since then, a volunteer. And I want to compliment you because of what you said, that you would not ask a volunteer to do anything you wouldn't do yourself. And what the candidates that I have always worked for, if they didn't work with us, I stopped volunteering for them. But if they weren't there when we were working, that was the end of my volunteering. So I commend you for that. Now, my real question. I like your green branding thing. I think that is absolute genius. Did you tie any specific environmental issues to your green campaign? Just out of curiosity.
A little bit, yes, because in my district there's a freeway that was a proposed freeway route, which I wish we would have known about a little bit earlier, because the freeway, they wanted to blast a hole through South Mountain, and I run South Mountain, and it's actually considered like tribal land as well. And so we did kind of tie it to the environmental part with the South Mountain, as well as, recycling, and the city does recycling, but how we could do more to become a green city. And but it wasn't like one of the number one issues in the campaign, just because of the economy and everything else that was going on. But I definitely did tie it a little bit to the environment.
I just thought it would be a natural, and I wanted to ask about that. Thank you very much, and thank you for being with us tonight.
The other thing that I forgot to, and thank you. The other thing I forgot to mention is when we were doing like these calling parties, I would have prizes.
Oh yeah.
And so people who got the strangest phone call would get like a prize, and usually the prize was like a bottle of wine from Trader Joe's or some chocolate or something like that, something fun.
Well, that's only encouragement. Volunteers get very little encouragement unless the candidate is there actually doing something with them. You sometimes, as a volunteer, feel like you're out there by yourself, just in your own little world, sort of, with your little list of phones to call. So that's an excellent idea, and I'm sure the volunteers appreciate it.
We made everything fun. So anytime you saw pictures of events or anything, it looked like you were having fun, like you wanted to be part of this campaign.
Our county chairman here does that very well.
Good.
She's really good at that.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Johnny. That's fantastic. So let's wrap it up. I always insist on ending on time, and I have the slide up, Dana, with your contact information. I know some people may have questions that are personal to their own situation that they don't want to ask directly, and I've checked with you in advance to make sure it's okay with you to put your contact information up here. So if you don't mind, Dana, for the audio podcast that will result from this, can you read your email and phone numbers that you want people to use to reach you?
Certainly. My email is Danamite, DANAMITE, consulting, CONSULTING, @gmail.com. My office number is 602-296-4493, and my cell phone is 480-225-1275. And for Facebook, you can Facebook me, and my Facebook name is Dana Marie Kennedy in Phoenix, Arizona.
Thank you. That's great. And obviously I think everyone has picked up from now why I wanted you to be on the program. I see you as an inspiration to others who are considering running for office or who may run for office in the future, and I know that they got a lot out of hearing your story and your observations. So, Dana, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and what a great resource for potential candidates.
Great. Let me wrap up now by putting contact information up for Frontrunner 2020. You mentioned Facebook. There's a page for Frontrunner 2020, and we need people to go there and like the page. So find your way through the new Facebook layout and like Frontrunner 2020 in Facebook. The website has transcripts of the program, frontrunner2020.com. So go there and comment on transcripts. Look at the past programs and look for this one to be up next week. There's a YouTube channel where the video recordings are archived, Frontrunner 2020 TV. We put information on Twitter from time to time, Frontrunner 2020. And for those of you that use podcasts, you'll find us in the iTunes directory, Frontrunner 2020. So thanks to everyone for participating. My clock shows 8:59, and everyone have a great night. Thanks for being here.